Starting on Monday, prosecutors in Hennepin County are being asked to enact a very controversial policy. They will be required to consider race when offering plea deals. It's part of a new policy from Hennepin County Attorney Mary Moriarty. Lou Raguse leads off our coverage tonight. Lou?
Julie, this new policy was sent to me by sources within the Hennepin County Attorney's Office concerned that the policy could be unconstitutional if they start taking race-based government actions in their roles as prosecutors.
This is a new negotiation policy set to go in effect Monday in Hennepin County Attorney Mary Moriarty's office. In it, Moriarty lays out several considerations, including race, that our prosecutors should take when extending plea deal offers to defendants. The policy says proposed resolutions should consider the person charged as a whole person, including their racial identity and age. While those factors should not be controlling, they should be part of the overall analysis. Prosecutors should be identifying and addressing racial disparities at decision points as appropriate. KARE 11 News provided a copy of the policy received from sources in the County Attorney's Office to University of St. Thomas Law Professor Rachel Moran, former prosecutor Imran Ali, and U of M Constitutional Law Professor Jill Hasday. Ali says he understands confusion expressed privately among prosecutors about whether it means race should be considered when proposing a prison sentence.
Our law, our sentencing guidelines that we have that the criminal justice professionals use every single day in court says that race should not be used in that calculus. This seems to contradict our sentencing guidelines.
Moran believes the policy was carefully written to avoid the Equal Protection Clause of the U.S. Constitution.
I definitely think that some people will get worked up about the issue, but I don't see a constitutional problem. And that's specifically because the policy tells prosecutors to avoid racial disparities, not to create them.
Hasday reads the policy as contradictory.
It both says don't take race into account, presumably because of the constitutional problems with taking race into account in addition to potentially political objections. But it simultaneously says this is something you should consider.
And because of that, Hasday believes the policy could face constitutional issues, even if it was intentionally written to try to avoid them.
Problem for the drafters of this policy is once you take race into account, it doesn't really matter what else you say. The policy is going to be struck down.
Mary Moriarty declined an on-camera interview and didn't answer specific questions that I had regarding potential constitutional issues. In a statement, a spokesperson wrote, in part, this policy acknowledges that there are many factors to be considered in negotiations. A defendant's race matters because we know unaddressed, unconscious biases lead to racial disparities, which is an unacceptable outcome.
It is hard to look at that, though, and not think, how can that be constitutional?
Right. Well, what Jill Hasday says, the constitutional law professor, she specifies that when it comes to age, Moriarty in the policy addresses reasons why age is to be considered, and that has to do with the science behind the brain development and stuff like that. So Hasday thought that it was adequately explained for age to be constitutional, but she says the U.S. Supreme Court is so much stricter when it comes to race, and their past rulings made it clear that you can't cure societal problems with racial disparities by using race in government actions. That's the explanation from the constitutional law professor.
And the thought is that someone who is a white person, for example, will be the person to bring this case forward, and it could go, who knows, all the way to the Supreme Court.
Defense attorneys would call and say, look at this, I didn't get as good of a deal for my client as this person is getting. That's the fear that it would raise.
All right, well, we're glad you broke the story. A lot to talk about and think about there.
Absolutely.
Thank you, Lou.